Welcome, everyone. Hi, this is Sherry Sims, founder of Black Career Women's Network, and welcome to Day 5 of our Career Smart Virtual Masterclass. And yep, this is the last day of the week, and this has been an awesome week with some fantastic dynamic guests. So tonight's guest is Minda Harts, and Minda is the founder and CEO of the Memo, and she is located in New York City. And the Memo shares the same initiative that BCWN shares. So we're going to have Minda talk more about what the Memo is and how she actually became inspired to create this organization. So for those of you maybe tuning into our Career Smarts Virtual Masterclass for the first time this week, Career Smarts is our professional development suite where we are providing tools and resources in terms of courses and masterclasses like this, and career success calls, and also smart guides to really help you to gain clarity, to also to help you get strategy. To actually create a strategy, and then also find solutions to help you to go to the next level. So that's what Career Smarts is all about. Now, this particular masterclass all week is really all about power moves to building an empowered career. So we've really been diving into getting you to think a little bit deeper about what are the moves that you want to make that can help to move your career along. Not just basic information in terms of job search and things like that, but really inside of you, what do you need to change? What needs to shift, and how you go about managing your career in order to get to where you need to go. So tonight, we're finalizing tonight with a very, very in-depth conversation with Minda and I, because we share the same initiative. Why not talk about it? I'm going to go ahead and have Minda introduce herself and what she does, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, Minda.
Awesome. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. It's such a pleasure to be here with everybody. I know that you could be anywhere in the world tonight, but you're here with us. So we're excited about the conversation. My name is Minda Harts, and I'm the founder of the Memo. We're a career development platform that helps women of color ascend toward the C-suite. And we do that by our career boot camps. And so you can learn more about us at myweeklymemo.com. But I'm so inspired by the work that Sherry does. So it's such an honor to be here tonight to talk about, a seat at the table. So as you said, we're both in, the same space, working, chipping away at that black glass ceiling. So we'll keep doing that.
Absolutely. So for those of you who are actually watching in our Facebook Live tonight, if you could use the hashtag Career Smarts, I'll put that up here for you guys so you can see that. And then you can also use hashtag, because we got Minda in here, the Memo.
Thank you.
Make sure you use hashtag the Memo. And then last one, which is always my favorite, Black Career Women. So make sure you use those three when you're talking tonight. So we'd appreciate that. All right, let's jump right in, Minda. And thank you for giving some, introduction of you. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about the Memo, of course. So I want to jump right into you kind of talking about, we know what the Memo is, but what we'd like to know is, what was your experience in corporate America that inspired you to create the Memo?
Yeah, it's funny because so I spent 12 years as a fundraising consultant at a fundraising consulting firm, and we worked for on site with universities and colleges, helping them put together their strategy for their endowments and their fundraising plan. And for 12 years at my firm, I was the only woman of color. And so as some of us know, being the only one or one of few, it gets lonely, and you have to figure out and navigate workplace politics. And being a first generation college student, my main concern was just, make a lot of money, continue to climb the ladder, and, just put my blockers on and just keep moving forward. But what I realized in doing that is that one day I just kind of have this epiphany. I'm like, there's nobody here that looks like me. There's something wrong with this picture. It's not a badge of honor to be the only one. And I thought, what could I do to change the ratio? And, I talked to the powers that be, and eventually I had a seat at the table in that firm. And it just seemed like the dynamics, they didn't want to change. I think they liked the way that the status quo was. And so it was around the time of Trayvon Martin. And I was just really just concerned with the state of affairs in the world. And I just thought, as a Black woman, what can I do for other people to just help with some of these issues that are happening around the world? And I was on a train, Amtrak from DC to New York, and I was listening to a Drake song. And in that song, he said, "Did you get the memo?" And all of a sudden it like dawned on me. I'm like, corporate America, the workforce, they need to get the memo. We're here. We're the most educated group in the country. And, we deserve that seat at the table. And then slowly started still working my day job at the time, just building out and starting with a career, just blog once a week, the weekly memo that I'd send out. And then from there, we started doing career boot camps and just kept going forward. And I'm so excited about the work that we're doing, but it really was just me waking up and saying, hey, this is not okay. And what can I do for the next generation or women who feel frustrated or stuck?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And it's so important that we talk about this. And so let's jump right in, because I talked about this hashtag that was like wildflower last year. So for those of you who are watching last year, during the time when Bill O'Reilly, which I couldn't stand, so I was so glad to see him get the boot.
Yes. There's a few that need to follow suit with him right out the door.
Okay. So when he made the comment, of course, we all know about the comment he made to Maxine's Waters, and then Brittany Pagnon. But the hashtag was already about. The hashtag was already in circulation, had been in circulation for a couple of years prior to this. It just hadn't been used very much. And so Brittany Pagnon, she reignited it, and it just spread like wildfire on Twitter. And there were so many tweets of women sharing experiences they had in the workplace. And I know I spent a good 3 days like trolling through the hashtag for, responding. It was like, oh my God, I can't believe it said that. And it was just, I was so drawn into that. I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop.
Hashtag me too. I definitely.
And so it was great for a couple of reasons, because for me, I have been in this space since 2013, and really have been talking about this the whole time. Yeah. And so to see this go viral was great, because now it gives more visibility to platforms like mine and platforms like Minda's in terms of why we're here, to really help to find solutions to why we're, how can we, or, to create solutions to get us also into the C-suite, but not just the C-suite, but leadership roles. Let's get us into leadership roles, period. Mm-hmm. And so the hashtag was very significant for organizations like Minda and ours, in terms of our message that we are putting out there and the tools that we are, helping women with to help them to manage their careers and level up and like she said, get a seat at the table. So tell me, Minda, really quick, what was the most craziest what was the most craziest one that you've seen from the hashtag, the ones that were shared?
I just like you, Sherry, I was glued. I remember when I came back to Twitter and I was like, oh my God, Black women at work, and I was just stuck on Twitter, just trolling. And even I find myself now, I'll catch myself doing a hashtag Black women at work, because it was just so powerful. And for me, I think just I'm tongue-tied, the stats, along with, the lack of Black and brown women in executive roles in Fortune 500 companies. I think the use of memes to kind of tell this story, I thought was really cool. And what I really loved is it brought a community of Black women together, talking about their experiences. And even in those moments where we as Black women feel like we might be all alone because we don't have anyone to talk about these stories with. And it was like this whole culmination of stories, and you could see yourself in the moment, like, yeah, girl, I had that happen too, and you realize that you're not crazy, right? You're not delusional, that these things are happening.
It brought validation to so many women's experiences by having that hashtag, and seeing the traction of the experience. It just, it gave women life to some that hey, I'm not crazy. I'm not by myself. I don't need therapy. And no, you don't. They really said that. They really did this. And now it's about how do we provide solutions that help them to be able to overcome biases, the unconscious biases, and all those things that impact them in the workplace, and keep us from internalizing these things and making it seem like it's us. And so it's all about making sure they have clarity of who they are and how they want to move forward. So let's just step right into some of the questions that I have for you tonight, and we'll go right into lack of Black women in the C-suite, because I know your initiative is really to help women to get into that space. So from your perspective, why do you think there's not enough Black women of color or women of color, should I say, in the C-suite?
Yeah, I think it's a number of issues. I mean, number one, obviously systemic issues and systems that block us from moving forward. I think a lot of companies right now are investing tons of money in recruiting diverse talent, but they're not doing a good job in retaining us and moving us forward. And
Right.
So that's where I think is the crucial period. We do the job, we're there, early, stay late, work 10 times harder, but we're not moving forward in our careers. And I recently had a conversation where I was interviewing 25 diversity and inclusion officers, and we were having the candid conversation. I said, you have X amount of Black and brown women in your company. They've been here for X amount of years. And unfortunately, you have no women of color in your executive team. What is that about? And, they were embarrassed to say that they're, a few of them were saying, well, they're just not, they don't have the experience. And I said, well, it's a double sword that you're falling on, because if you don't have the opportunity to get the experience, then it's hard to move forward. Number one. And I said, and if there's nothing in play to move them forward, or your executive team is bringing friends from the old boys club in, from other companies, I said, then again, we don't get those opportunities. And so I think that, the systemic issues, the networking opportunities, we just maybe don't have those networks that Bob is thinking about us when it's time to fill a role, and also too, I think that well-intentioned, a lot of the employee resource groups at companies are, it's sometimes just a place for people to meet, right? But there's no systems in place to identify and move talent and managers forward. So for me, I think that there has to be some onus on the executive team for them to say that this is important, because if they don't think it's important, then we're never going to get there. And long story short is, my fear is that we're going to lean out. And we already know that women of color are starting their own companies and doing that, and which is great, but some of us need to stay and be those voices. So, it's like this darned if you do, darned if you don't thing. But on the other hand, I think some of us, our skill set, right? There's some things that we can do to level up and to invest in ourselves. So if we want others to invest in ourselves, maybe having a seat at the table is getting your public speaking skills on point. So maybe taking a couple of courses so that you're comfortable when you have those opportunities. So I think there's, it goes on, it is on both sides, but I think a lot of it is stacked against us. But I think we're moving forward with these hashtags, like you said, Black women at work. I think the climate that we're in, we're busting through that black glass ceiling no matter what. And so I'm really excited about the future.
And the thing is that it is partially our responsibility. And, in some ways we are doing our part. And what I mean by that is that we are getting the education, right? We're getting the education. But we do need to think about taking it a step further. I think that a lot of times we forget about the networking piece, and we forget about that it's not our employer's job to support our professional development. That is our responsibility. So if you have to go out externally to get that, then you do that. And so it really is about strategy and making sure that you create goals and stay strategic and be clear about that, and stay focused on the timeline
right.
of that. So I think that's hugely important to do when it comes to that. But yeah, great. Leah says great point.
No, thank you. One of the managers that I spoke to said to me that I just don't know how to manage diverse talent. And, when I hear things like that, I'm thinking, how do we ever move ahead when you have managers kind of in the way? Managing talent is managing talent.
Sounds like a problem to me.
I'm like, that's interesting. But like you said, one thing that I did notice when I was in corporate America is that my, white female counterparts, they had no problem going and hiring an executive coach. They were doing that. They were moving forward. And I think that, those are tips that we can take a page out of their book and say, there are some things that we can do that will help us move forward toward that. And even not, maybe you don't want to be in the C-suite, but maybe you want a management role or a leadership role in some capacity, that there's just some tools in your toolkit that you need to be the best possible.
And I think it all goes back to access sometimes, right? And so you're saying that, white women are like easily, they easily go and get an executive coach. Well, we may not necessarily not know to do that because we haven't had access to someone who is saying you need to do that, right? So the lack of access to the mentors, the advocates, the sponsors who can tell you these things. I mean, think about this way with Oprah. Do you think Oprah would become a network without advisors saying, hey, you should do this? Or the guy who told her you should syndicate your show? That changed the game for her, right? When he said you should syndicate your show. Oprah may not be here right now if she did not do that. So we definitely need to make sure that we are seeking out people who can be that we can have access to, that can help us to think like that and change our mindset so we can gain access to what we need to, again, to start, looking to have a seat at the table. So I think it's important. I'm going to put that on here as something that you all should take note for you guys who all are viewing, is that, you need to think about, how to gain access.
Yeah, I think that's you hit it on the head. It's the access piece. So, I'll tell some of the women in our community that, I use Bob just because that's an easy name. Bob doesn't care what cupcakes you like, but it's behooves you to learn what cupcakes Bob likes, in some of those kinds of situations. I'm being a little facetious, but he's not going to come to your cube. So you have to be strategic, to your point, and figure out how Bob gets to know you, how he finds out your worth ethic. Because if you don't have a boss that's an advocate for you, you got to figure out how to position yourself in a way that Bob knows what you're doing and who you are.
And the thing is that, too, is think about this. You're not trapped in that employer. I think what sometimes we think that if the salary is good, we think we're stuck there. You're not stuck. If you are keeping yourself marketable, you can leave and go somewhere else where you can get the type of support. So you need to constantly be thinking about, am I getting what I need to go to the next level? And I know we talked about this with Evoke Life in terms of making sure that you go into this position with specific things that you want to gain from that. And I talk about that all the time when I talk about putting an expiration date on your job. That's real. What do you want to gain from this position, right, Minda, in terms of what's going to help to get you to the C-suite? The visibility and the access is huge. So tell us some things that they can do to gain access, Minda.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you can do that's really easy, it may not be easy maybe if you're an introvert, but you push yourself because we're strong and we can do that, is going to those networking events, going to the happy hours, going out to lunch with your coworkers every now and then. I think that it's so key to we talk a lot about our external network and building that out, but your internal network, your bench, your team, those are the people that when you're not in the room can advocate for you. So I think it's important to build key relationships with, the executive assistant, the HR person, colleagues on your team, people that can just, be there for you and be a representative and vice versa. So I think that's an easy thing. Once a month, asking one of your colleagues out to lunch or going out, for happy hour. You don't have to drink, order a seltzer water, but being there, because I always say a lot of things happen after 6, right? And you got to know what's coming down the pipeline. Everything is not going to happen by the water cooler. So you got to be a part of that conversation. So I think that's a good first step. And then, from there, finding out who your allies are and building off of that.
The best scoop is after 6. I'm serious. The best scoop you will get is after 6. It's so true. Hi, Tiara. Thank you for tuning in tonight. She says, yes, the executive assistants hold the keys to the city.
They do.
Yes, they do. They do everything. But, still, you can't. I mean, I know we probably have said this all week, and we're probably beating you over the head with the hammer about it all week long. But you cannot go to work, put your head down, and do a good job and think that it's enough, because it is not. It is not. I think I've made that mistake. I'm sure Minda has made that mistake in her career before. Some of you watching have also done the same thing. And then when you woke up and realized, okay, I'm doing my review was stellar, but I'm not going anywhere. So we talked about this a lot, looking at your relationships. But gaining access is huge. How do you gain access to relationships, right, Minda?
Yeah.
So this is hugely important to think about that. And we're not talking about ass kissing, ladies. Let's make it clear.
Make it clear. Yes.
We have heard this over and over. So it's like, now it's time to really put this into action. It's hugely important to put this into action now. And that's what this is about, is, getting clarity, getting a strategy, and then making sure that you're, actually find a solution to your challenge that you're having right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I add one more thing, Sherry?
Absolutely.
One thing that I wanted to say too is, to your point, it's not ass kissing. No, it's not that. You can still be authentic and gain access. I know I used to work on a floor with our vice president, and he had the ability to make or break someone's career, add an extra zero to it. And we didn't have a relationship, but one thing I did know, and I traveled a lot, so I was hardly ever in the office, but one strategic thing that I did was whenever I knew that he was in the office, because he traveled as well, he had standing appointments like on certain days. When that door opened, I would plan and walk by. So when he walked out, I could at least say hi. He would see my face. And over time, then those highs turned into a little bit more. And a few months later, a little bit more. And eventually he started to see my face. And when we'd be out in meetings or different things, he would speak to me, which he never did before. And then eventually, about a year later, I had the courage to ask him during one of those moments where he's stepping out into his office. I'd love to talk with him and, talk about my career and blah, 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 blah. And from that moment forward, he became my sponsor. He was never going to come to my cube and see what was up with me. Okay. I had to create that opportunity for myself. And he put me on, now that I was in his thoughts, he put me on panels. He put me on committees. When openings would come up, he would recommend me for them. And I'm so thankful that I had to get out of my cube and make that move. And I would encourage you guys to, be strategic. And that was just being myself. You got to get up and go to the bathroom. So, hey, walk past the guy's door and make it work for yourself. So
that's so true. And even if nothing comes from that, having the relationship, or having that person, but what she did was she actually gained access, but she made herself more visible to him. Mm-hmm. And I have one story where it specifically didn't turn out in terms of me being able to level up, because I decided to change careers. But when I talked about this in a podcast that I had recorded, and I had gave a 4 weeks notice to in my position. My manager was fine with that, but my director was not. And about 2 weeks into my notice, they asked for a report. And then I went home for the weekend, came back, and they said, you got us at a good place, enjoy the next 2 weeks. And then bottom line is they tried not to pay me for those 2 weeks with my vacation. So I sent an email with documentation and all that good stuff. And then the director comes back and says, she felt like I checked out, so I'm getting nothing. Mm-hmm. And so I said, like the hell you will, you're going to pay me. And so I called the CEO. Now, let me backtrack. I would have to go over to the main building to retrieve my documents for background checks every day. And I would have to walk past the CEO's office. So I would speak to him every day when I walk past his door. And he would say, how are you doing, Sherry? That's it. No stopping for conversation, no chit chat. I would just say, hello. And so back to when I called him, and, and we all know C-suite men, you don't know if they're going to call you back. You don't know. So I really didn't know what the response was going to be. He called me back immediately and said, Sherry, how can I help you? And so I told him about what happened. He says, there's two sides to every story. I said, yes, it is. He said, can you send me the email you sent? I said, absolutely. I sent it to him while I was on the phone. He read it. He said, let me get down to the bottom of this and I'll call you back. And then I just shared a few things with him before he hung up. 2 hours later, I got a call from the director saying she was going to pay me for the next 2 weeks and my vacation.
Hey.
And then she hung up in my face.
Okay. But you got your money, right?
I got my money. And not only did I get my money, but it was in my account the next day. And on top of that, the CEO sent me an email and followed up with me and said, Sherry, my apologies. You know, some people get caught up in the moment. We hate to, but good luck in your endeavors. And so he didn't have to follow up in that capacity. And so for me, it was great because one, you followed up and you didn't have to. One, you made the effort to say, pay that woman.
Please pay that woman.
Yeah, because you're wrong. You know what I'm saying? And you're wrong. Yeah. And so, but you don't know until you speak up. But maybe, and just think about this, maybe had I not come by his office or walking by his office every day and spoke, I could have had a different outcome.
He would have been like, who's this?
Exactly. It could have had a different outcome.
Yeah.
And so that's what's important is to do things like that, because you never know how that can turn out. No seat at the table for me, but leaving that job actually catapulted me into what I do now. But that's a story I always share, because you have to speak up for yourself, but you also need to make yourself visible regardless of the outcome.
Absolutely.
So Shannon says, yes, build those relationships way before you ever need something. It has worked for me on many occasions.
Yep, that's true.
All right. And then Tara, okay, she's got a good long question here. Let's see. Any tips on establishing relationships in virtual environments? I've not had an in-office team in nearly 5 years. Company changes are making it harder to have any face time, but I obviously need to create and maintain relationships with business partners.
That's good.
All right. Question. So any answers for her for that one, Linda?
You know, for about 4 years in my career, I worked remotely. And that was a challenge, because you want to stay visible, you want to stay relevant, and you have to work a little extra harder to do that. In my case, and I don't know if you're able to do this, but what worked for me was staying in touch with my colleagues, you know, having a monthly phone call with colleagues, and just staying, you know, if something was coming down the pipeline, you know, just touching base or shooting them an email every now and then, just saying, hey, what's going on? I saw X, Y, and Z. I think you have to be so intentional about keeping those relationships solid and firm. So even when you're not there, they still remember you. And even when, for example, I didn't see my boss often, months and months at a time. And so, you know, when things would happen or come up in the pipeline, when we had one-on-ones, I'd always say to him, I know that I'm not there and I'm not visible. I said, but I'm still interested in moving up in my career. You know, just because I'm not in the office doesn't mean that, you know, I'm out of sight, out of mind. And I would also, at least once a quarter, make sure I was in the office and do those rounds and be visible for some of the staff meetings. So I think, you know, just as we were talking about being visible, making the rounds, saying hi, it's the same thing, but just utilizing, you know, Skype, FaceTime, emails, those little things go a long way. What do you think, Sherry?
No, I absolutely agree. And I think it's all about being proactive, you know, because even though you have this, you know, it's a virtual environment, but you can create this on your own virtual culture. Yep. So just be proactive and create that to continue to, you know, make sure you're staying connected to the team. So it could just be a powwow, what you got going on this week, or, you know, how was your week, or and sharing best practices or tips or anything. And it doesn't have to be driven by or, you know, being requested by leadership. Just the things you guys can do on your own. And then if there's an issue with that, then, you know, then you need to question, you know, do you want to continue to work for them if they think it is harming you guys being able to connect, you know, on your own to keep that camaraderie between the team. So sometimes it's all about being proactive instead of reactive. And think about who are people on the team who can help to keep that going. You know, if it's not you, who on the team would love to be able to initiate a call every week? Yeah. So there's someone else on that team you can delegate that to that will keep it going.
Yeah, and Slack too. I don't know if you're using Slack, but that's another way that's really helpful to stay engaged with your colleagues as well.
Yeah, Slack is good. If you're, depending on what your organization uses, you've got Skype. They have they've got that Yammer. Some of them use Yammer. If it's on Microsoft, You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If you're using iCloud, then, you've got your tools there. So it just all depends on what platform your organization is using and what you have access to create the dialogue, because there's so many virtual teams who do use the chat rooms, right? To communicate. They could be in an office next to each other and they're
That's
tapping
true.
away.
And you could be in an office working with people and never get to know them, so don't let being remote, dictate how deep your relationships can be.
That's true. Because if you're in the office, and I always use this, candy was always the best way to draw people to your office. Seriously, because if they get a sweet tooth or something like that in the afternoon after lunch, and they're like, okay, Sherry's got chocolate, or she's got the old school candy. I'm going over there and pick through her bowl. So, and they'll come over and sort of conversation, especially if you have the right stuff. They'll do it if they think that you are approachable. And it works.
Yeah. All
right. So can you guys keep the questions coming? This is what we're here for. I'd like to go in and talk about let's spend some time on solutions, Minda. And I know this is a little bit of a longer conversation, I would say. But from your perspective, what do you feel like are some of the solutions that need to happen? You and I both agree 100% that a lot of this needs to come from the organizations in terms of being able to initiate the change.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think they should start? In the organizations in terms to create that. And I know we have Morgan's on here. She is in diversity and inclusion currently right now. So Morgan, please chime in if you'd like to. We'd love to kind of get some of your input on this as well.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's kind of a loaded question, and I think there's a lot of pieces to the solution. But I think that definitely the executive team, again, it starts with them. If they see a value in having diverse talent move up the pipeline, then that's a good thing, right? So companies that say it, at least, that's a good start. If your company's not talking about diversity and inclusion, then that's you might want to side eye them. But I think having those candid conversations, if it makes sense, about your intentions. And so maybe you can't save everybody, but at least if you're vocal to your boss or your supervisor that you do want to move up, that you're invested in the company. And I think sometimes we're not even having those conversations. So making it clear that you do want to move up and that you see yourself as part of the executive team. And can we talk about a growth strategy to get there? I think so. If you have those conversations and everybody understands where we're headed, then I think that's a good place to start. And then it's on them to help you move up the pipeline. And then also I think these employee resource groups are helpful. So joining those and talking to the leadership typically, and correct me if I'm wrong, to the diversity and inclusion expert in the room, but typically there's an executive team member that sponsors that group. And so maybe there's a way to connect with them and just putting yourself out there. I think that's like half the battle. But to your point before, sometimes we talk about, the seat at the table, and you have to realize this the table for me too. So don't be afraid to look at another table if you're able to promote and advance somewhere else. Because sometimes we, as women, will take on so much and give them every last drop and not get what we worked hard for. And so sometimes we have to say, hey, let me take a beat and go somewhere that's going to value me and advance me. So I that's kind of my mindset. What do you think, Sherry?
No, I agree completely. And you hit it on the head when you talked about this having strategy conversations.
Yeah.
And so what that means is having strategy conversations with your manager in terms of what your goals are in this organization. So in making that clear. So we're not talking about just at review time. We're talking about if you guys are having any kind of one-on-one conversations throughout the year, that could be part of your conversation when you walk in to have your list of things to discuss in that one-on-one. You could be, I like to have a strategy conversation about my career trajectory here, and be direct in terms of, how can you support that, or the resources that I need to do that. What are the dollar amounts? What can you sign off on? This is what I want to do. This is how it could benefit the position I'm in, and be clear about that. And then if those things are not supported, and you've already asked, you've done the internally, to get the support externally to do that. But then if you are applying for a role that you know that is within your career trajectory for that company, and then you do not get it, you ask for feedback as to why. And then, if you're getting the runaround and you know it's not right, then if your manager is not supporting that, you clearly in a position where you need to make some decisions. Mm-hmm. Do you stay or do you go? There is no way around that, because the money might be good, but then guess what? You're going to be in the same spot 10 years from now, and then you're going to be kicking yourself in the butt because you didn't go to grow.
Yeah, and you'll be sour like that expiration date, right? You'll just be out there. I mean, that's just the reality.
I'm gonna get on here because we have to make a clear, conscious, decision to be very strategic and stay conscious in our careers at all times. It's not work. It's just staying clear about, what it is.
Yeah.
So what was, I forgot. Look, that's an old age. I forgot what I was going to type.
But I do think, I hear a lot of, because we don't, sometimes we are afraid to say what we want and ask for what we want. Sometimes our managers will think, oh, Minda, she's good. She comes to work on time. She's doing her work. She has no aspirations to do anything else. And we have to remind them that I'm not just here for kicks and giggles. There's things that I want in my career and I want to be here to do that. But, so some of it is on us. We have to articulate what our goals are. And if, to your point, if they're not showing us a clear path there, then we have to think about what another direction might look like.
Right, because you're only going to get so much of that in the initial interview in terms of asking for that support. Asking for what that path is like. Once you get in, you really see what the internal dynamics are. I have some coaching clients right now, and they tell me, "Oh, I've applied for positions 11 times in the company," and I hate to hear that. It makes me cringe because if you apply 11 times and no one has moved you forward in any capacity, whether it's a lateral move, a demotion. Mm-hmm. That is a clear indication of what's going on in the culture or the type of reputation you have, or is it toxic? What's really going on in that environment where you apply for 11 positions and none of them have been offered to you, and you have not been able to get any feedback for any at all as well. So in my mind, that's some bullshit, and it's time for you to go.
That's true, and sometimes they will give you the runaround. I had a good friend who recently had to pack her bags and walk away because I kept promising her and dangling this carrot of promotion every time, but she was doing the interim work, but they would never give her the pay. They would never give her the money. She was in all the executive meetings and and I said to her, I'm and she was just down and out and depressed. And I said, listen, you've been doing this for years now. I said, I can't even empathize with you anymore. You gotta go, girl. You gotta go. It's on you now. They've already shown you who they are. Okay. And sometimes that hurts. It's like a bad breakup. We don't want to leave. They said they were going to do better next time, but you gotta go. You gotta know when to fold them.
Yeah. You have to be clear about what's going on around you, period. Yeah. You have to be. And so I'll just use myself because I believe in transparency, because this is by experiences also. And I specifically, in my one-on-ones with my manager, and this was in a coaching position that I was in, and I said, "This is my trajectory. I want to go into the classroom and facilitate. So when another facilitator position opens up, I'm going to apply for it. That's my goal for being here, or one of my goals for being here. So in this particular role, you can coach and still facilitate in the classroom about 80% of the time." So I applied for the position, and then come to find out there was a young graduate who also did. And my manager, I knew 3 months into the position, really had it out for me. She made it clear, had made it clear. But I could not let that stop me from being able to, to stop my plans because she had it out for me. So even though I know she had the power to roadblock that, why would I not still try?
Right.
So long story short, a manager came in, who was the manager for the position, came in and told me I didn't get the position and tried to give me some BS about my resume. I wanted to go ahead and do this to her throat, shut up, because I know my resume is fine and you coming over here feeding me some BS. And then I took off Monday because I had some things I needed to do personally. And then they sent out an email blast to everyone who got the job instead of telling me who it was, right? And then I came back and then was told that my manager completely has sabotaged the opportunity for me to go to get the job. At that moment, I knew it was time for me to go. Yeah. At that moment, that I knew that it was definitely time to go, and I tried to show that the different things that she was doing and through documentation that she was trying to sabotage my success, and no one would believe me until I left. And then they saw her, and then came back and apologized to me. I'm gone now. I don't need your apology.
But I'm sure it felt good to get it, right? It was a little validation. It felt good to get it
because I'm like, I told you guys, this is what she was doing. I mean, when I come to you, I'm a professional. I'm coming to you with hardcore documentation here of what this woman is doing, and I'm watching her every move, and I shouldn't have to come to work and do that. So I say that to say, not to get all to the soapbox of that type of thing, but when something like that happens, you have to know your worth, and you have to understand that if something like that happens, don't hang around for the paycheck. Get out of there, because there is another organization that will appreciate the talents and gifts that you have, and that will support your trajectory, your aspirations to grow as a professional. So don't sell yourself short by being afraid to make a move. Just don't do that.
Don't do it. You know, I'm glad you told that story because it reminded me of a time where I was going through it at work, and there was a woman. We'll call her Becky for this conversation. But you know,
good hair girl.
Becky with the good hair was really having an issue. You know, she was maybe about 30 years older than me. We were supposed to be working together on some projects, and she was not here for it. Becky was like, "Don't want you here. Don't want you working with me." And you know, I just continued to work, but it got so bad where she was trying to sabotage me. And I hate to even say that. It makes me cringe to think that another woman would want to sabotage another woman. But, and I was a little naive, and it came to the point where my boss had to step in and he said, you know, Minda, you should go to HR. It's getting really bad. And I didn't want to do that because this woman had been working at the organization for like decades. And so long story short, I had to go to my boss's boss and have this conversation. And unfortunately, Becky and her were best friends.
Oh, no. Oh, bad deal.
And I was making good money. Life was good. I could take my trips with friends, whatever. But I had to have this conversation with Becky's BFF, our main manager. And I said, you know what's been going on. I've been tormented here. I said, I just don't know what else to do. And I didn't want to even have to have this conversation with you. And she's like, I'm going to keep it real with you. We hired you because we thought you had thick skin. And if you can't handle it, she's not going anywhere. Then you need to decide what you're going to do.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my, I had to clutch my pearls in that moment. And she's like, we value you. We think you're really great. We think you're a rock star. But if you can't handle it, then you need to figure out what the best option was for you. And I said, okay, well, I'm glad I know where I stand. And I gave my month notice after that, because I was not going to, we hired you because you thought you had thick skin. I'm like, I'm not going to play this game. I'm never going to win here. No matter the amount of money, no matter the amount of rock star status, it's just not going to work out. And you have to know your value. And at that point, I took it for a long time before she beat me down and I had to like crawl out of the door. That's how bad it got, And so that expiration is crucial.
It is so crucial. And so for anyone who is experiencing that right now on the job, where you have a manager who is definitely tormenting you, or you're having some challenge with them, they're out to sabotage you, and it's clear, you feel it in your gut. There is an HR term for that. It's called constructive discharge, which means that they're trying to push you out, is what that means. And we'll be talking about HR Confidential on another one.
It's real.
It's coming. We're going to talk about it. But yeah, when you know that they're trying to push you out. And so, but there is a term for that, and it's called constructively discharged. And so there are things that you can do to not necessarily prevent it, but you can document everything. And so if you can prove that and you have someone who can support that, hey, you might end up staying there and they may lose their job. the woman I just talked to you about after I left, guess what? They ended up firing her, walking her butt out the door, maybe, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months later. Well-deserved firing, excuse my language, which is the truth. Because she was tormenting other people as well, so there was a pattern there. So, hope she's doing well and learned a lesson. So Nicole says, we'll go ahead and put this up here for, Andrew says they were bold with their words. Yes, but you have to be. That's the only way. That sometimes you have to have that, where that straight slap, what we call slap in the face, right? So to make clarity that, okay, this is the final straw for me. Now I know for sure that I have to get out of there.
Yeah.
So it says, hi, newbie. Thank you for tuning in again. She says, I heard of a career professional recently say the employer/culture that gets you deserves you.
I like that.
I like that too. I like that too. Hi, Andrea. Andrea says the corporate world is real when you for a big company, when you work for a big company.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so let's talk about that, Minda, in terms of navigating the culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
I talked about this the other night about thriving instead of surviving in the workplace, right? So when it comes to gaining a seat at the table, what are some of the things that they should be doing from a navigating the culture standpoint that can help to elevate them or get them prepared for that seat at the table, or as we were talking about earlier, getting access to that?
Right. That's a good question. I think, when I talked about the me making my rounds and popping into my old boss's, office every now and then, he gave me a seat at the table, but I wasn't ready for it necessarily, right? I was like fast tracked to this seat, and I really didn't know what to do, or I hadn't found my voice yet, so for a while I just kind of sat there and was just happy to be in the room and all of those things. And there was no one that looked like me in the room. And so I just was like, okay, I'm just cool being here. But I wasn't as effective as I could have been. And I think that when you have that opportunity, as I mentioned before, to, practice before you get there. So taking those public speaking courses, signing up for, programs in coaching like this, that helps you get there, that helps you find your voice, so that when there are issues that you want to tackle, or you have a certain perspective, that you're able to, speak on that in a way that's diplomatic. And I think that a lot of surviving and thriving, I like that word, a lot of thriving in corporate America is navigating workplace politics. There's a lot of politics in play, and a lot of it is kind of like the high school, sitting at the cool kids table. Who do you need to know to be an ally for you, and who's going to speak for you? And a lot of it is relationships. And that's what I found navigating corporate America. I was very quick to, I got the advice that, never say no to anything when you're offered. I wouldn't necessarily give that to anyone now, but then I would take on anything that was thrown at me. So being a part of this committee, being a part of that committee, but being a team player, that's important. Someone they can depend on you. Like, these are all these sorts of soft skills, writing a professional email. All of these things go a long way, because, people are looking at you to maybe fail if you're not a part of the crew initially. And so once you get in the door, you want to, you're going to these business meals. So if you don't know the proper business etiquette or what fork to use, there's a lot of simple things that, you can just gain that insight, so that when you get there, because you're already feeling a little imposter syndrome. So if you could take some of that away before you get to the table and prepare yourself. And I think that platforms like this are so important, because you hear the stories, you hear the lessons learned. So when you get there, you know what to say. And when you get your seat, then when you establish yourself there, you can bring another woman, and then she brings another. And now we have this coalition of people, and we built credibility amongst our peers. And they don't just think, oh, it's affirmative action, or she got here because, she makes good red velvet cupcakes that Bob likes. You're there because you have a voice, and you've worked hard to get there. So those are just some of the things. It's leveling up. So when you get your shot, you're able to shoot it and slam dunk.
That's so true. And here's the thing, and I know you guys have heard me say this before on various career conversation videos that we've had, and our calls, and just a regular fan, a random Facebook Live I do. But I always talk about how every job you accept should elevate you to the next level. Mm-hmm. And you strategically looking at the role, to gain specific skill sets that can elevate you, right? So if you're looking to get to that leadership role, you need to do the work before you get there, because if you don't do the work to get there, before you get to the role, you may get there, but you may not stay there. And a lot of times it's not that you don't have the soft skills, it doesn't have the skill sets to do the job, or the talent to do the job, because obviously you have the experience and the education required for the role. But it's the internal dynamics that are going to trip you up, not knowing the hidden workplace rules, right? Not navigating the culture, and then identifying certain people who can be key players. We talked about this a little bit a couple of nights ago on one of the master classes, but it's important to understand you have to do the work before you get there. And I'm talking about this from experience, because I had one job. It was my first manager job. I had 3 direct reports, and I knew the work like the back of my hand as far as the experience, right? And my team loved me, but what I was not prepared for was playing the game. Wasn't prepared for it. Because what people have to understand is that when you go from being worker bee, mid-level, and maybe even some kind of mid-level or entry-level roles, depending on what it is, how it impacts the culture, when you get to that level of influence, which is a leadership role, it's a whole different dynamic that challenges it challenges your values and other various things as well. So you have to be prepared. If you don't know how to navigate through that, you will fail. And I lost that job. I was number 2 in the region in performance. I had decent relationships, but I wasn't playing the bullcrap games that I saw that was going on around me. And I refused to do it. So when I was told that I was let go because it wasn't working out, I couldn't understand why it wasn't working out. I'm number 2 in the region. My team is doing great. We're performing too. All our metrics and everything is great. And so, and then eventually, when I got the documentation back from the state saying they still gave the same thing, which was, it didn't work out. I'm thinking, what the hell do they mean it didn't work out? Can I get some answers here? And then I end up emailing my former boss 6 months later and said, you know what, I really just want to know what is it that I did that was so wrong, because from a number standpoint, I was successful on paper with my performance, right? He just said, Sherry, move on. I was like, damn, well, okay. It's like, okay. But then I figured it out later on. I figured it out later on that it was the politics. I was not, and I didn't even think about it at the time. I was not playing the game. But the key was I didn't know how, because I never had to. So I wanted the leadership role so bad, and I got it, but didn't keep it because I didn't know how to navigate through the politics. And that's real talk. And I know there's women up here who have experienced the same exact thing.
Yeah, no, that's real. When I mentioned earlier in the session that I did this phone interview with 25 diversity and inclusion professionals, when I spoke to some of the Black women who oversaw these programs, the one thing that across the boards they said to me when I asked them, why do you think some of the Black women in your company are not moving forward? And they said they don't know how to play the game, or they're not willing to play the game. And I think that was something that I learned very quickly, that it was a game. And eventually I felt like I learned, and as you said, I watched who were the players, and by the time I got, a better understanding, I knew how to play the game like I was in Las Vegas, because it is a way to navigate that. And, there's a woman in the team, and she, some people, I was working in Los Angeles before I moved to New York, and there was our CEO at the time. She did not like when women wore open toe shoes. Okay. As simple as it could be. She hated it. She didn't like it. Even if it was 100 degrees outside, she did not like this. Whenever women would come with open toe shoes, she would send them home. And, women would be like, oh, no, I'm going to wear what I want. It's, so hot outside. I would never. It would be 120 degrees out, and I would always wear closed toe shoes. But those were the things that she noticed. It had nothing to do with if I came an hour early or this, that, and the other. And because I was one of the only ones that I abided by that rule of, closed toe shoes, she would invite me to certain things. It's playing this stupid game that you have to sometimes play. And I think you have to decide as a woman, if you want to move forward, do I want to play the game? If you don't want to, then don't play the game. But there is a cost on both sides, right? There's a cost and there's some losses, and you just have to decide what type of, employee or how you want to move forward. Because it's hard to, especially in corporate America, it's hard to move forward without playing that game.
Yeah, and here's the thing, you guys. We're not talking about you have to go to work and do things that are against your principles and your values, right? But think about it this way. If the culture goes against the principles and values that you have, and that playing the game seems to be, it's hard for you, like pulling teeth because of what that entails, then that might not be the right environment for you. Because some of the things that you would need to do should be things that are simple enough for you to just kind of adapt to doing. And then pick and choose how you want to do that in terms of frequency, right? Depending on what that is.
Yeah.
So you definitely need to be clear about what's going on around you in the environment, the hidden workplace rules included, because those are the things that make you stick out as a sore thumb if you're not following those, period. And so period. So you have to do that. But politics and presence, let's kind of cover that, because you can have presence and still not play the game, right? Which will get you not far.
It will not get you far at all.
We had Callie Carr was on last night with us, and she talked about power, presence, and she gave some really great nuggets of wisdom for that. But the two P's are important: power and politics and presence. Having both of these is really important.
Yeah.
But Minda, from your experience, because you are a little bit younger than me,
just a little.
So from your perspective, in terms of politics and presence, what's your perspective on that? And then I'll give you my old school version. I
like that. I think that's important, the two P's, because when I first entered, a few years into my career in corporate America, I had, I guess you would say she was a mentor. And I was working really hard. I was, quote unquote, this rising star that they would call me. And she pulled me aside one day and she said, Minda, you are a rock star. I can't take that away from you. You're young. I know you're ambitious. You're going places. But your presence does not match the position going forward. And I was like, well, what does that mean? I come, dressed in my suits and shoes. And she's like, you got to level up. You have to, wear your hair this way. You have to dress this way, try, tailored suits, try this. She's like, this is how you stand out. If you're looking just like every other person in this company, yes, it's politics. She's like, our boss, she cares about your look and how you're polished and how you're put together and all of these things. And so for me, in that environment that I was in, I had to decide, am I going to have to go get a whole new wardrobe, or am I going to have to, get a few pieces and build from there? But I thought it was really interesting. And another thing a nugget that she told me was, as you're moving forward, because I started to get small promotions, you're going to have to leave some of your old peers behind because they're not on that trajectory. And that was something that didn't sit well with me, because I did have these friends. And again, I feel like you have to have this bench of allies that, and so she's like, you shouldn't be seen with people that report underneath you in the office. That's just the way our culture is. And I thought that was interesting. But those were some of the things that she told me about, the two P's. And again, it's that politics. And I didn't stop being friends with those people. There were times where just my schedule didn't allow me to be in the same places with them anymore. But those were things that I couldn't compromise my friendship because I wanted to move forward. But I understood that there were certain dynamics in play. And I was happy that she told me, because had I not leveled up in my dress, or had I not, maybe changed the way I was interacting with some of my former colleagues, I may not have been able to move up. And that was a decision that I had to make, for good or bad. And so I think there are things that you have to do. And just to your point, you have to decide, how far you want to go in the politics of it, because again, you can do everything A++, but if you're not, those politics is what takes you even further for good or bad. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I think from an old school perspective, and we're talking about going back to baby boomers and then my generation that comes after that, in terms of how the workforce was seen, in terms of you come to work, you come early, you stay late, that type of thing. And, you worked hard. I mean, you played the game, but it was just a different level of game. It wasn't so nuancy right now, I guess, like it is now, in terms of the little itty bitty things, right? I mean, I always tell my daughter, I said, hon, you go from elementary school on the playground with the bad kids to, honey, growing up to be on the same playground with the same adult kids do the same dirty crap. And
that's the word.
True. And so you definitely need to learn. I think for coming from working in that, working with a lot of baby boomers when I was younger, right? And then going into kind of, growing and then working with various age groups and seeing the differences, I think the main thing that I learned is that you have to stay adaptable.
Mm-hmm.
You have to remain adaptable. You have to stay on top of technology. You have to not become complacent. And I think a lot of baby boomers did that. Even some people in my particular generation as well afterwards did the same thing, because my generation also had to embrace technology as well. And so I think you definitely need to keep your eyes open for learning how to change your work style altogether. Yep. And learning, but also learning when you get to a certain stage in life that it's time to change things up. So what you put up with at 25, you may not put up with at 50 when you're in the workplace. You may tell them to go to hell, or you may retire, whatever the case may be. So you definitely need to continue to be self-aware, which is what I learned, okay, in terms of what you want, what you need. And then one thing we haven't talked about is the dynamics of being a Black woman in terms of outside of work and the pressures that we have as Black women to provide for our families and take care of our children or our husbands or our aging parents, and how those things can take into consideration how we do show up at work. And we talked about this a little bit Tuesday night with Evoke Life, but that we also need to think about how that impacts how we navigate, how we deal with what's going on in the workplace too. So I want to make sure that we answer some of these questions that we have here. Nicole has a long one. Woo, girl, what you got here? Okay, so Nicole says, how does one best recover when they find themselves being the only in significant job functions, and when they try to reach out to other higher ups only for support after happily discovering them in a similar substantial roles, the other onlys do not embrace you? Okay, so you mean other Blacks don't embrace you, right? Or other African American women don't embrace you? Is it men and women, or which one is it? And then, but would you rather give you the cold shoulder? Okay, I got you. Mm-hmm. And then I find this very, very frustrating that they don't want to join up with you. We onlys as Black women should be supporting one another. So what's your take on that, Minda?
Yeah, this is something that we talk a lot about at the Memo, because when you are the only one, or only one of few, and you reach out to those who are higher up in position, how you do sometimes get the cold shoulder. And it's unfortunate. I really think that when we do get in positions of power like that we remember those moments, and it's important to have that representation, and don't forget to look back and pull people up. So access, again, it frustrates me when there are people that look like us and we still don't have access within the company. And so I shame on them for those opportunities for that. But I think that in situations like that, I think Issa Rae said it best. Sometimes we're looking for the person who's like the high up, and sometimes it's best just to navigate the waters with our peers or people who have influence, but they aren't the man or the woman necessarily, but there's ways, maybe it is the executive assistant, or it's the person in HR, or it's your colleague that has a good relationship with that person, and strategically figuring out how you make inroads. And one thing I learned the hard way is when those situations happen and you do reach out thinking, oh, I have an ally, it hurts. And you just have to move on from it and realize that person's not for you. And you're better off knowing that now than later. But that's just my take.
And here's another philosophy, and I'm just going to keep it real. You can log off if you want to after I say this. Here's the deal.
It's Friday night.
I know, right? I know we should have done this with some wine, Minda. Okay, so here's the deal. Even though they may be a Black person, they may be the second one in the department with you, what have you. I know when we see that, we're like, oh God, yes, we got somebody we can talk to, we can relate to, we can talk to our woes about. At the same time, unfortunately, often you need to take the same mentality with them as you would if they were a non-minority, in terms of being able to get to know who they are, find out what their character is, and learn more about them and who they are. Because just because they're a Black man or Black woman doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be someone you can connect with and relate with, or got your back, or with all of you have to just take the same amount of consideration in learning who they are as you would someone else who's a non-minority in your workplace. And that's just true. Bottom line, I have seen Black men go into VP leadership roles in HR, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm so glad to see that, right? So glad to see that. And then I go in to talk to them and get to know them. I'm like, you were straight up Uncle Tom. I'm not fooling with you. You know what I'm saying? So you have to understand who you are dealing with and learn how to discern character fairly quickly. When you learn how to discern character fairly quickly, it's not about sizing them up. It's about you being able to make a fair assessment on who they are and their character, and then determine what kind of relationship you want to establish with them and how is it going to impact your current role. Mm-hmm. It's about being strategic.
Yep, it all comes down to strategy. It really does.
It all comes down to strategy. Hi, Andrea. Thank you for tuning in. So Andrea is in Tulsa, just so you'll know. And I know that she's dealing with I already know you are because I used to live there. So what tips can you give the people on how to handle when they get rejected for not getting the position because of their presence at the workplace? Well, you just answered my question. Oh, okay. Well, good. I'm glad we did.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad we got that.
Yeah, I'm glad we did. All right, Shannon. Oh, they're coming now. They're coming in. What is your advice when you are doing all the right things according to your manager and mentors, yet you feel there is something they don't want to say that's blocking you from promotions? It's a good one.
That's a good one. That's interesting.
So what's your take on that, Minda?
That's interesting because yes, you're doing all the right things, but I think, and maybe you've done this already, so, write us back if you're not doing this, but I think we have to sometimes be candid and ask them for the critical feedback, saying, if I, on a scale of 1 to 5, how am I in this area? Let's be, I want to do better. I want to continue to, exceed expectations X, Y, and Z. But in order to do that, I know that I'm not doing every single thing right. There's some areas that I can improve upon. Could you tell me what those things are? And, one of the things that we do on our team at the Memo is we have those candid conversations with each other. Like, okay, I know that I'm good in this, but I could be doing better in this. What could I be doing? How could I do that? And we give each other that, that 360 feedback, because we need to hear that. And sometimes people are not going to keep it real with you. They're going to tell you rock star, rock star, rock star, but there's certain things that you do have to level up on. And then we get in ourselves like, oh, I'm doing everything right. And so when we don't get that feedback, we're offended or we're hurt, but it's all good because it just makes us better. It makes us more powerful. It makes us more stronger to be able to negotiate for what we want and get those, make those power moves, as you said earlier, Sherry. Love to hear your thoughts too.
Yeah, and Minda said it right, is that you do not, even if your organization does not have a 360 feedback review process, it doesn't matter. You still can request feedback from peers or someone that you work closely with. It could be another department that you support, and you can ask them specifically for feedback on their perception of your performance, and don't make it so uncomfortable for them to want to not answer the question. Like, don't send them a formal email and say, oh, I just want to know what you think about me. Because they're like, I'm not going to answer it on the email for you. So that's documentation, right? So, just casual conversation and ask them. And maybe you can even go as far as, depending on the relationship you have with this person or several, that you want to get on the calendar and schedule 15 minutes to ask them one-on-one. You know what? I'm really trying to, grow. I'm trying to develop myself here. And I just really would like to know areas of opportunity for myself that I can get better. So I'm asking my coworkers or peers about their experiences with me and how you feel about me. And be candid and be honest between us. And so there's nothing wrong with that. Again, your organization does not have to have a 360, feedback process in order for you to gain that information.
Yep.
So, go to some of your peers or, departments that you support. Go to the ones that you have relationships with, that you trust, that will give you some honest feedback, or as much as they possibly can, that you can walk away with and say, okay, I see how you view me. What is your perception of me?
That's good.
I hope that answered your question. Okay. All right, next one is, Shannon, another question. Shannon, you're on a roll, girl. How do you navigate moving up when there is an increase of people taking lateral moves? Wow.
That's a good question. Sherry, do you have an answer for that one?
I do. Coming from someone who has worked in talent acquisition, corporate recruitment for over a decade, probably more than that actually. If there are people who are getting an increase or people taking lateral moves, then there's something to be said about if they're the process, right? Mm-hmm. So, are you saying this to say that you tried to apply for a lateral move and was not offered the position, or are you saying that because lateral moves can be good? Okay, yeah. Let's be clear about that. Lateral moves can be good if it's increasing your visibility, if you're gaining access, right, Minda? If you're gaining access to people that in your other position you would not be able to gain access to, which means if you're going to another department where there's going to be more visibility, maybe more opportunity for you to create change or implement something. So lateral moves are not bad. Right. You just need to be clear on what is it going to elevate you, even if you're taking $1 more or just going over for the same salary. What are you gaining when you take that lateral position? So that's what you need to be clear about. I think people underestimate the power of a lateral move if they do it the right way, or if they can benefit from it in the right way. Yeah. All right. So Nicole says, thanks for the insight. She appreciated it. And then she says, thank you. I will probe a little bit more specific. Yeah, probe a little bit more, Shannon.
Get that feedback, girl.
Feedback. She says, I'm trying to move up, but it has been rejected because there was someone taking a lateral move into the position. Okay, I'm gonna tell you something. If they were taking a lateral move, that means they didn't have to pay more money. So of course, they're gonna let that person come into that position because they don't have to give them an increase at that time. So it saves them money in the bottom line when it's time for them to give an increase for other people in the same positions in their department. So that was a money move for them, and a no-brainer from a manager or supervisor's perspective, from a budgetary standpoint, to bring someone lateral and not have to cost them any more money. And hopefully, they were bringing in skill sets that would help to they can add value to the department.
Yeah. Good luck. Definitely.
Yeah. You need to find a mentor or sponsor or someone internally that you can align yourself with that can help to give you some insight, or at least see what you don't see. Mm-hmm. You need some honest feedback for real. What really is holding you back, and no one's telling you the truth. So definitely. Okay, it is 9:11. Girl, we just been talking
about all those seats we got to go and get.
I know. So we talked about solutions. Again, here's the thing. You got to look at your career in a collective in terms of the dynamics of what you say. You need clarity. You need to have a strategy. You have to have a strategy for moving forward. There's so many different dynamics to this. Now, some women know how to go in and navigate and play the game very well. And some of us do not. For you women who do not, this is who we're talking to. Women, if you know how to navigate, you should be sharing your tips and how you've been able to navigate through successfully, because other women need to know that. And so this is what this is all about. So we have went over 15 minutes, and that's okay. We want to make sure that we answer everyone's questions. So Minda, please, thank you so much for being a part of our, really just kind of ending off long Career Smarts Virtual Masterclasses.
It was such a good time. I hope that, people viewing found some gems in some of the things that were said. And I just had such a great time. I've learned a lot too, and enjoyed hearing your stories and advice too, Sherry. And I encourage everyone to continue. I mean, it's 2018. We have so much year left to go forth and just get what we want, ask for more, level up. And so, keep coming to events and master classes like this so that you have the tools and you're just more badass as the year goes on.
Absolutely. So Minda, tell them where they can find you, please, on social media.
Yeah, so Minda Harts across all platforms. Find me, follow me. I'm most active on Twitter. So, stay connected. Would love to. We're all in this together.
Yes, we're all in this together. Absolutely. And then you guys know where to find us. We're playing DCW Network. Is our handle on all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter is our main ones that we use. And then, of course, bcwnetwork.com is our website where you can find us. And then, of course, we have our, our Facebook private group, which is you're in right now viewing this. So this is our final masterclass for the week. We'll do another week like this, but not right now because this takes a lot of emphasis. Let me tell you right now. Woo! But I have enjoyed it, and the women have been so dynamic this week. The replays will be available. You can see them still now in the Facebook group. You will be able to watch this one all weekend long with Linda as well. And then they're going to go away, and then they will be available in our Career Smarts suite. And so if you're not a member, then you will no longer have access. So take advantage now while they are available in the Facebook group before they go away, and then we put them into our Career Smarts Professional Development Suite. So last thing I want to be able to share with you guys. So for those of you who are not a member of Black Career Women's Network, I do want to give you a special offer. If you join, and today is the last day because we've been doing this all week long. If you use don't forget the hashtag. I put hashtag up there. If you use the discount code Career Smart, and I spelled that wrong. Let me start over. Hold on. Here we go. Let's try this again. Career Smarts MC. There we go. If you go ahead and use this promotional code, and you will be able to purchase your membership, 1-year membership for 50% off. And it's going to all this week. So I'm being very generous with that for you participating and watching our masterclass all week long. Use the promotion code Career Smarts MC, and then go in and take advantage of getting your entire membership for the year for 50% off. This is a great time to do it. So it will be available until midnight tonight. This is the last day. It's almost done, isn't it?
Yeah. Run, do it now.
It's been going on all week. So, and I will also send an email out to you guys as well. So, again, Shannon says, thank you, Sherry, for providing this platform, knowledge, and sharing for free this week. You are absolutely welcome. We have to give back. We have to give back. And this is my way of doing that, kicking off the year by doing that. So again, thank you so much to Minda for tuning in with us and sharing her nuggets of wisdom. And then go and check out her website. Check out, she has something called After 6 Career Conversation that she does. She has her boot camps that she has as well. Like I said, we are all in this together. Yes. And so it's all about us being able to share our nuggets of wisdom to help us support you in your career development as Black women. So I want to leave you with this quote, you guys, which is the life God gave you is larger than the life you've been living, which means that God gives us all special gifts. And it's our responsibility to discover what those gifts and talents are and use those to work in our purpose. So I'm going to leave you with this, which is know your worth, discover your strengths, and work on your purpose. And I hope you guys have a great, 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 awesome weekend. I'm snowed in. So I am in the house for the rest of the weekend. And I guess I'll be working on getting these videos ready for the Career Smart series.
There you go. Boom.
So guys, you have a good night. Minda, you hang on, and we will be talking to you soon. Good night.
Thank you guys. Bye-bye.